Hey there, booze buddies. Welcome to another episode of Paranormal Spirits, where we share a drink, we tell you a spooky story, and then we rip it apart because booze always shows the truth. And as always, we will be playing Emily's Drinking Game. Emily's Drinking Game. Ooh, yeah. Yeah. Where every time we screw up a word or phrase, we take a drink. So grab a drink, get yourself a little snacky poo-a-roo, and play along with us. Today, we're going to take a trip to California. We're going to go to San Diego, and I'm going to tell you a little tale about the Whaley house, which is probably listed as one of the most haunted houses in America. Thomas Whaley, who was a Scottish-Irish bro who was born in 1823 in New York City, took over his father's successful business, and I don't know what that business was because who cares? There's no relevance to the story, in New York. And then in 1849, he left New York and went to San Francisco during the gold rush. He then engaged in more business, which the internet didn't tell me what that business was. And after he was like donezo with San Francisco, he went back to New York and ended up getting married to Anna Eloise Delaunay. So after he got married, they returned to California. They went back to San Diego. 2 years later, they purchased land and began construction on what would be the family home. The property was the site of one of the town's most famous public executions. So the family home is where they hung someone? So they purchased land in 1855, and the land that they bought was the land where this execution took place. What is that execution, you may ask? It was the hanging of the infamous thief Yankee Jim Robinson. And what did he do? He stole a boat. My kind of guy. He wanted to be a pirate. I didn't really look too much into it, but like, they're like an infamous thief. And I was waiting for like an amazing story. And they're like, yeah, he stole a boat. Now, are we talking like big boat? Are we talking rowboat? Are we talking canoe? Like what kind of boat? Just non-specific variety of boat? Boat. Because it seems like there should be different penalties for canoe versus like, you know, like sailor, I don't know, warship, you know, big ship sails. Don't know the names of them. Oh, you still one of those big ship sails? Hang on. Because he was hung there, people thought the land would be, you know, bad juju and it wasn't a good place to build a house. Thomas Whaley said, I don't care. And he started to build the house anyways. He actually designed the home himself. And in 1856, the home was started to be what? What? That words? In 1856, construction started on the home. And it was like the first of its kind in the area. It was a full brick house, which didn't really exist there at that time. It was completed in 1857, and the total cost of the house was $10,000. So for that time period, I don't know conversion or math, but I'm assuming. Wowza, that's a lot of money. What also like fast. They built this entire house in a year. Usually it's like, and 40 years later, the house was built. Yeah, he was not messing around. He wanted that house built. On August 22nd, 1857, the Whaleys moved into their new home, now known as the Whaley House. Very inventive. Come up with a cooler name, like the Dead Man Hanging Ground House. Well, when you got a name like Whaley, why mess with it? What would you have called it if it were your house? The old brick house, the extravaganza lane, home of death and destruction. The house on Hanging Hill. Ooh, that's way better. What did I say? You know what? I think it needs a merit. Where do you live? Oh, you know, the house on Hanging Hill of death and destruction. Thomas and Anna, they had 6 children, but at the time that they moved into the home, they only had 3. Unfortunately, it was not long after the Whaley family moved into the home that some sad stuff started to happen. Their youngest son, Thomas, at the time, who was 18 months old, actually died of scarlet fever, so he passed away in the house. A few months after that, there was a fire, and they had like a general store in the home as well. It was big enough where they had this general store, and the fire destroyed the general store. Question from the class: Yes.
The general
Lynn?
store, was that for the general public, or was it
Yes.
like a family store? Like, were they charging these 6 kids of theirs, like, oh, you want something extra? That'll be 5 pence, please, sir.
5 Whaley bucks. That's what they charge the kids. But do your chores and you'll earn your Whaley bucks. They're Whaley cool. So their kid died, which was tragic. The house caught on fire, also tragic.
Again, another question from the audience. Their brick house caught on fire. How does that happen?
Well, the outside didn't catch on fire, but the inside can still catch on fire. Everything in the house wasn't made of brick.
No.
They're like, this bed is really uncomfortable.
All right, everybody, let's cuddle up and watch some TV.
Ouch. Ouch. How did they have 3 more kids? There's no spring in that bed. So after the not brick interior of the house caught on fire, they moved. They went to San Francisco. They were like, we're peacing out of here. And they stayed in San Francisco for a couple of years. And in 1868, the Whaley family, which had more kids, because they pumped out a few more kids up in San Francisco, so there was 5 kids total, they moved back into the home.
They pumped out more kids?
Yeah.
And they were pumping out kids on the brick furniture?
No, they weren't in the brick house anymore. Yeah, they left there and they're like, wow, we can actually do some humping and pumping here.
The word pumping makes me very uncomfortable. Like, if you're like pumping gas, fine, whatever. But if you're like pumping and humping, that makes me uncomfortable. That phrase.
Well, usually you hump before you pump.
So the humping precludes the pumping.
First comes a humping,
And then comes a pumping, and then you have 5 damn babies.
the family returned to the Whaley house and it was active once again. So they converted an upstairs bedroom into a theater and then rented out some of the house or one of the rooms to the Tanner Troupe, which was a local theater troupe that was traveling through San Diego at the time. For the troupe's opening night performance, the small room had a stage and a few benches, and they fit 150 people in there. It was mostly standing room only, and they were telling women to not wear, they're asking them to not wear hoop skirts so they could fit to the room. They had the big play, 150 people, no hoop skirts, no petticoats allowed, and tragedy occurs again. 15 days later, the operator of the theater died, and then the troupe was basically no more. So then this house gets used for all this really cool stuff. It was turned back into a general store. It was also used as the headquarters for the city courthouse. But in 1870, the local merchants began to move to like a newly established town that was called Newtown. Thomas Whaley didn't want to leave. He wasn't ready to go, so he stayed and continued to live in the home. Things kept getting worse. They had 2 daughters. Both of the daughters were engaged at the same time, and they were planning this big double wedding. I don't know if it was a double wedding. I don't really know. I think I misread, and now I'm telling you things that are incorrect, but that's okay, because that's what we do here. Because it's not about the facts. So Violet, one of the daughters, married some guy who was clearly Italian because his name was George Bortolacci. George Bortolacci came with his freaking bocce balls, and he came over here with his pizza and his meatballs, and he was coming in hot for Violet. Shortly after he and Violet got married, he revealed to her in a letter that he had a rather sordid past. I don't know what it said in the letter, but this also leads me to believe that he was an Italian man. We're Italians, we're lovers. I don't know what the letter said, but I'm assuming it was like, hey, yo, Violet, it's me, your husband, George. I did a lot of humping and pumping in my past. I'm gonna do a lot of humping and pumping in my future, and it's not gonna be with you. So you better get with the program, or else I'm gonna tell my mother. Her parents were, Mr. and Mrs. Whaley, were insistent on her severing all contact. Violet was feeling real sad. She was real sad. She had a husband. Now she doesn't have a husband. Her husband was not what she thought he was going to be. She was, just a sad dog for a couple of weeks. And then she killed herself. Her sister, who was engaged also at the same time, her fiance broke off their engagement as well because it was a scandal. After all this, Thomas was like, you know what? We out. He built a home in downtown San Diego, and the family left the Whaley house and moved into this new home, and the Whaley house was vacant for over 2 decades. Thomas Whaley died in 1890 at his new house. It just died because he had bad health, and his wife died 15 years later in 1905, so the Whaley family never returned to the home. Now, let's get to the ghosts. Even before the Whaley family passed away, they experienced things in the home due to Yankee Doodle Dandy who was hung on the property. During its restoration periods, like the workers and visitors, they would hear strange sounds, they would see things, and they would smell things. There was a lot of weird, strange aromas as well. Obviously, the big heavy hitter freaking ghosty ghost is Yankee Doodle Dandy, Yankee Jim Robinson, right? It says that he would make eerie noises. You could hear him stepping and stomping all through the house, lots of loud footsteps, and he would leave disembodied footprints. And then obviously baby Thomas, little baby Nuggetino Thomas, passed away when he was 18 months old. People could hear like tiny footsteps or the sounds of him crying or even giggling, like little tiny Tommy giggling when nobody was around, which not a fan. I don't care how cute you are. I don't care how you died. Please don't giggle. Keep your post-mortem joy to yourself. Some people have reported seeing a young woman lingering on the second floor of the house. It's believed to be Violet because she was like sulking around the upstairs after her husband, Joey Bag of Donuts, said, "Hey, away, I banged a bunch of broads and you're not the first." It's said that her presence is felt. So people can like feel her presence in that area. And there's also cold spots throughout the mansion or the home that are believed to be Violet as well. This one is a little weird because there was no like direct reasoning for it, but people have also reported seeing the apparition of a little girl in the dining room. One of the employees, because the Whaley house now does like tours and it's a thing, so one of the employees that works there claims it is the spirit of a young girl named Annabelle Washburn, who was a playmate of the Whaley children. The story behind her says that she ran into a low-hanging clothesline and broke her neck. And Thomas found her and put her on the dining table where she passed away. That's where she ended up dying, was inside the house.
That's horrifying. How tight does your clothesline have to be in order to break someone's neck?
How fast could she run? Was she roadrunner status?
Her little legs were like...
It's like a dust cloud behind her while she runs to her impending doom.
Oh my god, that's horrible.
There's really no record of her ever existing, so I don't know if that's a lie or not. Thomas and Anna, they are also said to have, like, you know, their presence is felt. And I don't really understand what that means when people say that. Like, oh, their presence is felt. Like, how can you pinpoint that? But I guess if you know, you know. Maybe they can feel them humping and pumping.
If you hear the bricks a thumping, Thomas and Anna are jumping.
They're humping and pumping. How did you miss that? A lot of people have seen Thomas dressed up in his frock and coat and his top hat and the whole 9 yards, standing at the top of the stairs. And then other people say that they can smell Anna's French perfume. Again, how do you know?
Maybe she had a very particular parfum. De toilette. De France toilet. It's fancy.
It's Francie. Other occurrences that happen around the house are lights turn on and off. There's like a crystal chandelier in the dining room that will be swinging like this, apparently. And then, you know, obviously random noises and footprints and stomps and all that sort of stuff happen too. The Whaley house now is like a place where people do things. I don't really know. Somebody owns it. They do ghost tours and stuff there now. I didn't really read about that because I don't care. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say. I got nothing.
It's a heck of a haunting.
Well, that's the crappy story of the Whaley house and the Whaley family. And if you liked what you saw, hump and pump your way over to the like, subscribe button and ring that bell. If you don't like what you saw, don't leave us a hanging and just get out of here. Nobody cares. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for watching. And we'll see you next time on more Drunken Adventures with 2 old boat-stealing whores. Get out. Goodbye. Ooh.